Hey guys, I'm Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC.
I saw about BHSpringSolutions.com.
And Dave Mitchell, BH Springs.
This is one of these really rare opportunities when three BH personnel are all together. When it's my partner and our right hand from the United States, and we just all happen to be in Bulgaria today, and we're right at the end of our 11 caliber shootout, and this is what we decided to do for part 5, and so that's what you have joined us. And to have all of this make sense, if you haven't watched parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 yet, you definitely will want to do that. That's where you see some exploding watermelons, and Dave's got a watermelon shower, and our other guy Logan did too. And when we conducted that, we didn't really have any agendas for like anything except just one thing, and that was what's the most destructive handgun caliber and or ammunition choice, and can we learn something that we can walk down the road with. And big holes going fast seem to be endorsed and endorsed and endorsed. And at BHSpringSolutions.com, maybe Slav, you can help us just exactly, but you can go there and see and download all of the final finishing results, all of the data, all of the reference material that we collected along the way doing the test. And
Yeah, all the material is already uploaded to BHSpringSolutions.com, and I will add a screenshot where it's exactly located. It will be embedded in this video. So
okay, so you want to see that. In the end, the final 45 ACP round that we tested, which was a 220 grain PlusP Hornady, we did believe that to be the most destructive to the test media, and then it will show you down from there. One of the things that stood out to us, and it was undeniable, and before I go on with this, we want to say about all of those test results, that's just the way we saw them when we went back and reviewed the exploding watermelons and the unexploded watermelons and the expanded, channeling through the watermelons. This was not a laboratory test. This is a real life test, and some of the ribs were thicker, and some of the watermelons were thicker, and so we leave all kind of room for skepticism and coming to your own judgments first of all. But there were some things that seemed to hold true, and that is more velocity out of the rounds that we tested improved the results in terms of the destructive nature of the round. And so much so that I'm now carrying PlusP 9mm and PlusP in 45 ACP. And I'm imagining that a lot of guys, when they see that test and they see the consistency of the increased destruction to the test media that came with the velocity, this is probably going to be on other people's minds too. And so what we have done is we are introducing today a new expanded service at the BH Custom Shop Service Department, and it is called PlusP Rated Function Optimization. And what that means is we're going to do everything that we always do with our BH Veterans handguns. We're going to test with standard pressure ammunition, but then we're going to, after that, we're going to prescribe a different recoil spring and test with PlusP ammunition. And the whole idea of this is we want guys to be able to have confidence and a good controllable handgun when they're using that level or that pressure related to PlusP pressure. The idea is that if we have extracting empty shell casings with standard pressure ammunition, say 6 to 7 feet, if we can duplicate that 6 to 7 feet extraction distance with PlusP ammunition, we're dealing with approximately a similar slide velocity, a similar amount of energy. And what that means is your handgun's going to behave approximately the same way and feel the same, whether you're shooting your standard pressure ammunition for practice or you're shooting your whatever your preferred, if it's a PlusP loading. Now that I've done that, you guys, I want you to chime in on anything about this that comes to mind at all?
My 5 cents or whatever you want to call it to that test. I mean the 11 caliber test. Uh, you know that here in Bulgaria we have some law restrictions about what we can carry, ammunition wise. I mean, so it is not only the speed that is important, but also how the bullet itself is constructed. I mean, how it's going to be constructed to behave inside the target, and this determines how much of this energy that is generated by the speed is actually transferred to the target. And for me, this is one very big factor when I'm choosing carry ammunition, because there is no point in having all the speed in the world, but if the bullet just works like a needle, it goes through the target and continues flying. This means that it won't transfer any energy, any destructive energy to this target. There are limits. I mean, like Dave, when he was shooting the AR-15, well, the bullet, I think it didn't have this mushroom shape after that. It just went straight flying. But still, the energy that was transferred is not the entire energy that this projectile can hold, can transfer to the energy to the target. Sorry. So a big deal for me is again the shape of the bullet, and it needs to be perfectly in balance with the speed of the bullet. You want this bullet to possibly stay in the target at far as possible in the target. I mean, you need to have this 12 to 18-inch penetration.
Mm-hmm.
It is good to be on the 18-inch mark, but the bullet is good to stay in the target, because this guarantees that there won't be any collateral damage after it leaves the target. And at the same time, it will be able to transfer all its energy to the target, because it's staying there. There is no more energy. Everything that it has is given to the target. The target is the main problem for the target is to handle this energy.
Mm-hmm.
How it's going to handle it.
You know, the AR-15 part, I teasingly call the 223 a 22 high velocity. And
Yeah.
So for anybody that got confused by my terminology during the video, that's my little poke of fun at the 223, calling it a 22 high velocity. But including that day, and I think 3,200 feet per second is about what a 223 is known for. That did put an emphasis on fast.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say now big holes going fast, I mean both of these things together are of value, and it brings us back to this PlusP question for handguns. Dave?
So, of course, I had the fun part of shooting the watermelons, shooting the ribs, and maybe you saw one or two of the videos, one or two of the watermelons explode and rain material all over us. But yeah, so that was the fun part. I think the two of them, Mark and Slav, have already explained how the 11 caliber test and what the outcome was for us. I was a combat medic for 21 years. I have seen battle wounds. I've seen the cavitation created by rounds, and the larger the hole, the more damage that the more energy provided by the round due to the speed of the round. Obviously, the more damage, the better for the shooter. So I don't have a whole lot much more to add than that, other than I too am now carrying PlusP in my everyday carry.
That says something. I mean, really. I mean, among us having done that test and had real minds change about, you know, what do I want to carry? I'm gonna be the first to admit, for years I thought the heaviest bullet, you know, 147 grain or 150 or whatever I could get a hold of in 9mm, and I didn't pay very much attention to the velocity part. I thought it was, you know, heavier projectile is a better, you know, is a better route. And that's not necessarily so. I wanted to address though one thing that I think has to come up with from a lot of folks who do business with BHSpringSolutions, because we are specialized in all of the high power models that have been made of history, all the 1911s virtually, CZ75 and CZ75 compacts, and generally, I think a lot of people, including me, have shied away from PlusP pressure ammunition in this. And this was designed, you know, back in the 1920s and 30s. This is pre-PlusP days, right? So, granted, the platform was not necessarily designed for what we're doing. And so that's why I wanted to speak to this, because it's generally been something that I think a lot of guys have shied away with in many of the legacy handguns, and for that reason. There is, if you were to look at the high power design and say, okay, what is it that makes PlusP ammunition a problem for this handgun?
For me, there are two things. First, how the entire system is going to endure the impulse of the round, and the second one is how the barrel chamber is going to endure this impulse of this pressure. So
Yeah.
The
impact on the cam lug and the for both the barrel and the cam and the frame, that's a huge impact. Every time you shoot a PlusP round.
That's where my personal concern happens right here. We see, and we've now seen a lot of high power barrels with fractures at the barrel cam lug area right here, which we have now reinforced with the BH advanced barrel, and we've had no instances of fracture. And lug cam, which has a reputation for fracture as well. And but what makes this a question all has to do with the amount of movement from here until this barrel comes rearward. The barrels are literally dragged down by the angle and the placement of the locking lug cam and related to the barrel cam lug. And it's that initial bolt thrust that we believe is what does this fracturing, that what does this damage. And I can say that this is something that Slav and I had on our minds, and that was recoil spring length. All the way back to our very earliest days of BHSpringSolutions, and maybe like the second spring we ever made, I think maybe it was the 18.5-pound recoil spring for high powers. But we weren't only focusing on, when we say 18.5, I want to quantify that just for a second, or clarify that for just a second. What that means is when this recoil spring is compressed, when the slide is all the way rearward, and this spring is compressed to the state that it is when it's all the way slide rearward, from that position, that spring can push 18.5 pounds. It would be possible to make a spring that will push 18.5 pounds from that dimension, yet not have any resistance out here when the slide is in forward battery, if that's what we did. So we were consistently focusing on something that I came off with the term, I think, front end resistance, and that means when the slide is forward, appropriate spring length and resistance from the spring that arrests or provides enough resistance to this initial bolt thrust to protect that area. And I believe that's what we will be doing as we expand the testing into PlusP rated function optimization. We're going to be prescribing a correct spring, and this also does put an exclamation point, so to say, on keeping those springs fresh. Because when one of the things that Slav and I learned very early was one of the natural signs of a spring's life going away is it does not expand back out to its original relaxed length. And when they stop expanding out to their original relaxed length, your front end resistance is going away, and the what will protect this area and the entire firearm is going away at that point.
I think with a new prescription for springs, we're also providing a little more control with PlusP. So additional accuracy, right?
Definitely.
Slide velocity, fewer malfunctions. If your slide velocity is off or the springs start to degrade, obviously you're going to have some malfunctions that maybe hadn't seen before.
There is a problem when the slide velocity is way above what it should be. There is a good chance for the extractor to the case rim to slip from the extractor because of the speed. I mean, the extractor cannot keep enough pressure to the casing rim, and it will just lead. This will lead.
It just leaves it behind.
Right.
It can.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another point just to think about also the extractor spring, that it needs to be fresh, it needs to be strong enough in all conditions. I mean, doesn't matter if you're shooting PlusP plus or PlusP, you need to be sure that the spring is 100%.
Right. And there's more to this than just recoil springs. You also have your hammer strut spring or mainspring in most firearms that is when your hammer goes forward, the slide must push back against that hammer, against the resistance of the hammer, and actually cock the hammer. So this is another point of resistance that, and a reason why we're offering this upgrade service on firearms that we've already done complete spring optimizations on. In other words, this is not something we are even recommending even for our own firearms if it's not a firearm where all the springs have been freshened, all of the springs have been replaced.
Yeah. And it's a good thing to mention that we are not going to pursue dropping of the slide speed by changing the mainspring. We need to know that the mainspring is always capable of igniting the primer.
Correct.
And we are not going to use a lower gauge mainspring for not PlusP ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to stay with the one that is either OEM for the gun or it is specifically wanted by the customer.
Correct.
If the customer insists on the 26, we were going to work around it.
Correct. There's also going to be times where we may have more than one possible choice.
Mm-hmm.
Where one I can think of is there are some high powers, and I think a lot of this has to do with how tight the slide to frame fit is or not. That either an 18-pound progressive recoil spring or our 18.5-pound standard constructed spring, either one of these will suffice in some handguns. In those situations, we're going to wind up having a conversation with our customer, and that being, Would you rather us lean this towards a little easier slide rack, or would you rather us lean this towards the highest amount of control of the recoil? I can see some guys, will, you know what, give me the little bit more easier to rack slide. And some of them will be, you know what, I can rack, there's no problem there. And they want the maximum control that a recoil spring can offer. So, and we have the ability to do this in the 1911s, 5-inch and 4.25-inch, offering the same service. Get below about 4.15-inch barrel, and there's not a pathway in those firearms to respring them for a higher pressure ammunition. There's not enough margin in the recoil control assemblies. CZ75s will be offering the same as well.
Yeah, I think just to increase people's awareness, what is the most often broken spring in the high power? Do you remember it?
The most often broken
Yeah.
spring?
Which spring did we find to be more prone to breakage in the gun? I was really surprised to understand that this is the firing pin spring.
Yeah.
It is really one hard-working spring.
Yes. When we tested the TISAS 6,000 rounds, and all those springs came back here, and we spring tested those on this computerized spring, thing. In 6,000 rounds, that spring lost 11%.
And all the other was between 4 and 5%.
4, 5, 2,
level.
3.
Yeah.
The extractor spring in 6,000 rounds, there was no measurable loss of anything, which tells us that install time is everything with the extractor spring. It's not the use part.
It's just an information nugget. It's not something connected to this topic, but it's good to know.
Yeah. We have found firing pin springs in as many as 3 pieces. Yeah. When we've taken them out, we found magazine latch springs. I found one time, but this was not a breakage issue. This was a rusted away issue.
Makes sense.
And I know sometimes a lot of guys, maybe Dave sometimes thinks I'm manic about 1 drop of oil on that spring, every spring before you install it. Well, there's a reason for it, and the reason for it is because I've pulled these things out where, there was multiple pieces that just rusted away.
History remembers.
Yeah, and so, there's, Anything else you guys at all?
No, I think we covered it. Sorry.
Along that same line, that magazine disconnect spring, you see a lot of rust in those, just because it's a hard to get to spring, typically to keep oil in it, or to keep, and trying to eject a magazine that has a rusty or degraded spring is always much tougher, right? Than those 2 or 3 springs, you've got to constantly, right?
I will share with you one more for guys that have high powers that still have the original recoil spring guide run in them with the captured spring. I've cut a couple of these open, and one of them was terribly degraded by rust. And this is another place that you wouldn't think, but pressing that little detent ball down and putting 1 drop of oil and letting it, a real light oil, letting it run down inside, that's a good thing. The biggie message here in this is there are places in the high power and a lot of firearms you can't get to except maybe with an oil that is literally just like got the consistency of water, where like a drop will go into a mechanism and all over the place. And when we say a drop, that's the reason we have needle applicator bottles of oil that we have available at BHSpringSolutions.com, because over oiling is a bad thing. It's probably the number one thing that we cite on when we inspect firearms in our shop is over oiling. And you know what? For my first 10 years of high power ownership,
I was
the poster child probably. Man, I remember times where oil running out, and you really want to stay away from that, because that too can cause malfunctions, specifically because that oil just collects all that black stuff, and then it becomes hard, and then it becomes like a second finish, and things aren't mated as well when that happens. Anything else, guys?
No, I think we covered it.
All right, Dave, I want to again thank you for all of your help on that Labor Day last year.
It was fun. I had the fun part.
Yeah.
How many times do you get to shoot that many weapons in in a 2-hour session?
You know what I've done on that on the last one. It was Logan called it the bare naked watermelon or something. There was no ribs, just watermelon and the 12-gauge slug. And I've slowed that down. I am pretty sure that is vaporization. It just looks like it just
a
got
mist,
vaporized.
a mist of watermelon everywhere. Picking watermelon seeds out of my shoe.
That put a dramatic level of differentiation between long guns and much bigger holes going much faster. And while it was really, really fun, it was eye-opening too. And it would make me now today think differently as far as my home defense plan, quite honestly. Even if my home defense plan was still a handgun, it's got me thinking differently about ammunition choice, but it's got me thinking differently about firearm choice too, for home defense options as well. Anything else, you guys?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. PlusP rated function optimization. This is an upgrade service now being offered at BHSpringSolutions.com. You can always reach us at 1-888-423-BHSS. That's 2477. Also, BHSpringSolutions at gmail.com. And for David Mitchell, Slav Baruchiev, and all of BHSpringSolutions.com, thanks for watching, folks.